AI is happening sooner than you previously thought?
This is now go time. You have to decide to make the leap of faith. There are individuals who are well-meaning and have a good understanding of the situation. It might just be the case that the immediate incentives that they will have will point somewhere else.
What was the thing that pushed you over the edge? You decided to leave your 8-year career and now you're jumping into this fairly young, scrappy organization.
The challenge that humanity faces is just too big for myself to stay on the sidelines. So this is the greatest story of the century. Part of me is super excited that I want to be a part of it. Immediately there is a thought to be a good guy in this story. And the question is, where can you be a good guy in this story?
Well, hello and welcome, Kris.
Hello.
Maybe I will begin by asking a first question. What is your origin story? What is the journey that has taken you here?
Of course. And I always try to keep that section relatively brief. It never comes out brief, but bear with me as in the description. So myself, Kris Bar. I originally come from Poland, although I have been in the UK now for 17 years in total, so a long time. I came to the UK for university, did my undergrad in mathematics and computer science, and then a PhD in quantum computing. So that was 8 years together that I spent at Oxford. Then there is this kind of long-running joke in the quantum computing community that quantum computers are always 10 years away in the future. So they were 10 years away when I first got interested in those topics. They were 10 years away when I graduated in 2016. So my big idea was that I wanted to make some impact in the world. I didn't want to do that in an academic career. I thought that somehow working close with the public sector could be a way to do this. Just because over there, the impact that you have gets multiplied by the number of people that individual policies impact and so on. But I didn't want to do that in the UK civil service. I didn't want to do that with the life that you have if you go into politics in Poland. So instead, I went and worked for the past 9 years now for a strategic consultancy, specializing specifically in working with public sector clients, in advising them on technology policy. So working extensively with the UK government and other European governments on these topics. And then in terms of my path into AI safety, in here, since my university days, I was kind of familiar with the concepts and the ideas, and especially some of the Nick Bostrom, Eliezer Yudkowsky ideas, the LessWrong community. It all sounded very compelling to me. But at the same time, I thought that the timeline before these things become reality is even longer than for quantum computers. So that is more 50 years away and a question for our grandchildren. So in that context, I mean, I would want to claim that it was before the ChatGPT release, but it probably wasn't when I thought, okay, this stuff is happening, it's real, it's now, and it's time for me to make the transition into the field. Here is where BlueDot comes into the story. I participated in the course. The team was kind enough to pass my details to the team at the Center for the Governance of AI, GovAI, following which the GovAI team reached out to me saying that, oh, well, you have an interesting profile. Would you be interested in applying and doing a visiting research fellowship, a winter fellowship in that case with us? To which I applied. I was there at the beginning of this year for 3 months when the center was still based at Oxford. I worked over there with Professor Rob Traeger and with Dr. Toby Ord on governance implications of inference scaling. When I was there, I heard about the opportunity at the London Initiative for Safe AI. So we'll talk about that more later in the session. And started here at the beginning of July. So let me pause here. As promised, that was a long-winded introduction, but
Great. Well, thanks so much for the intro. Maybe I'll start by going all the way back with my first little deep dive question. So you're born in Poland. And then for your university career, you went to Oxford. What was it like moving from Poland to Oxford? How did that feel?
It was an absolutely life-changing experience. Yes, a slightly different culture as well, being away from home. Among the kind of entire atmosphere, entire architecture, that was something that was a big source of motivation. So basically thinking that it's an opportunity that I shouldn't waste. And it's something that kind of still stays with me whenever I visit. Yes, a sense of an enormous privilege, but then also a sense of responsibility for then making the most of what this offers. For myself, yes, but then for the broader community and the society as well.
You went to do maths and physics initially. Is
Maths
that right?
and computer science.
Maths
yes,
and computer science,
yes,
and
yes.
then you pivoted into quantum computing.
Yeah.
What was the motivation for getting into quantum computing?
Yeah, so I'll say a bit more about the sort of research that the group did, the research group did over there. So the big idea that the leaders of the research group had was to build a mathematical formalism for quantum, in general, for quantum theory and for quantum computing specifically, that would be more natural and more easier to absorb for humans than the existing kind of matrix mechanics and the von Neumann formalism, all of these things. They wanted to do that using a discipline of mathematics called category theory. So category theory is often described as the mathematics of mathematics. So it's an alternative basis on which you could build then entire foundation on which you could build mathematics, because typically we build it based on the foundation of set theory. And over there, you study objects that are static, whereas in category theory, the central notion is the notion of morphisms. So you analyze how an object changes under certain circumstances. It allows you to analyze what features stay the same, what features change. And then because of the dynamic nature of many systems and processes, this sometimes is a slightly more natural way to talk about things. So the research group had an idea to apply those concepts to quantum theory. And a funny feature of all of that is that it also allows you to build diagrams and illustrations. So the name they had for the entire research program was Kindergarten Quantum Mechanics. And they drew, myself included as well, interesting boxes, shapes, colors, and then wanted to be able to manipulate them and then hide some of the complexities of the computation under the manipulation of the diagrammatic representations. Kind of like you have with programming languages and the actual assembly code underneath. So that was something that really appealed to me as like a very interesting concept and building on the mathematics and computer science backgrounds.
So if we then come towards the end of your PhD and you're thinking about what to do next, talk me through the kind of thinking journey that you had there when you were deciding, to either continue working in academia or go out into the world, and how you then ended up deciding to pivot into strategy consulting.
So you're kind of in your mid-20s by the time that you graduate from a PhD program, and you start thinking about giving back to the community. You start thinking about feeling excited every day when you come to work, making a change in the world. But then there's a bigger question of, once you go outside of academia, then
where to go?
Yeah, where do you go, right? Why strategic consulting specifically? My kind of primary purpose and thought was that, well, I want to go work with the public sector. Quite often, the easiest way for you to progress is not within the department that you're in, but going to a different department, working on a different topic and so on. And then the last bit is, of course, in terms of going into a direct political path. And especially that was happening against the backdrop of the ongoing social media revolution as well. So my thought was that this is not the life that I would immediately want to have. So at that time, I definitely still thought that maybe eventually I would want to transition into that field, but maybe do that by going elsewhere first. Consulting is one of the best places you could do that.
In the context of AI specifically, how did you learn about AI? What was the moment where you suddenly had the realization, oh my goodness, AI is a big deal? What was that journey for you?
If my memory serves me, that was 2014. And it might be that this is not actually a non-standard path. The actual real moment of realization was reading the Wait But Why post by Tim Urban. That really drove the point home and was also a jumping off point for a deeper dive.
And what was it about the Wait But Why article that convinced you?
Yeah, so there was a drawing of a staircase over there, showing different creatures on different levels of the intelligence staircase. And then an argument that kind of commonly you think, well, what humans have kind of evolved to do and what humans have achieved is the upper limit of what's possible. And then the argument that actually when you think on a deeper level in terms of physical barriers and physical laws, it would feel quite unintuitive why this would be the absolute upper limit of what's possible. This first principles argument, barriers from physical laws, is not something that I have previously explicitly considered.
Because I assume by that point you were still in Were you in Oliver Wyman?
No, so that was 2014. So I was second year PhD.
Okay. So you're still in the PhD. You
Still,
suddenly have this realization: AI is a big deal. AI might be the biggest deal. How does that impact your life during the PhD and immediately afterwards?
Yeah. So I think, and it might be that there are many individuals who relate to this. So you have this aha moment, but then you still feel, well, it's convincing on a theoretical level, but what is the actual path to this materializing in the real world? So my thought back then, and that was, of course, against the backdrop of the deep learning revolution already having started, but the scaling results not yet kind of manifesting publicly to such an extent. So my thought was that this is incredibly compelling and interesting. This is something that I want to understand more, but more as an intellectual exercise and something that I will do in my free time. But because my current judgment is that this is far away into the future, 20, 30, 50 years, not something that should immediately impact radical career choices. But looking backwards, for full disclosure, this is certainly not the thought process that I had back then, that I'm going into consulting to prepare because 50 years away we might have transformative AI when I want to be ready. So,
in your time at doing strategy consulting, you worked a lot with the UK government, including getting seconded into the UK government at one point.
Correct, yes.
What did you learn in your time working with the UK government that has then informed your views on how to ensure AI goes well and the role that governments play in ensuring that AI goes well?
I think, and I'll start from a broader point, that in general, going to a large corporate organization, that was my first proper contact with organizational inertia and how, even despite the fact that there is all individuals who are involved are all well-meaning, what comes into play is the coordination problems and challenges that this brings. And as a result, it is often very difficult to move at pace and make decisions. In terms of the impact of this on my thinking on transformative AI, my big worry, which is probably shared by many people, is that given how quickly the technology is evolving, are we going to be able to react sufficiently quickly enough, especially from the point of view of the legislative process, to react? So that made me much more skeptical about how much hope and how much relative effort we should be putting into this. I still believe that these things are incredibly important and we should be working on them. I remain skeptical in terms of whether this is our best hope. Taking a step back now and thinking about developing frontier AI models in a safe way right now. At present, even if we were able to coordinate, go through a legislative process in the UK, in other countries, it's still the case that there are no technical solutions to the problem. So we could mandate things all we want, but if there are no technical solutions, even with the best intentions, organizations will not be able to comply.
I'm curious if there are any specific stories or examples you have from your time in government that shaped your views on the capacity and role that government has in ensuring AI goes well.
What I want to share is the interplay between the civil service and then the political masters and the ever-changing governments. So the period when I was seconded to work with was then the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, DCMS. So that was a period between first half of 2019 and the beginning of 2020. It feels like a lifetime ago, but that was before the pandemic. When I started there, Theresa May was the prime minister. First of all, it was Boris Johnson who came into power. Then there was the general election. And at that time, each time that there is a change at the top, there were also changes lower down at ministerial level, changes at the level of special advisors, and then as a result, changes in direction. So the topic that I worked on most significantly was what later became the Online Safety Act. And each of the changes in government meant a change in direction, a tremendous amount of additional work for civil servants, but then also with everyone being mindful that another change might come soon, basically putting an additional brake on people's overall buy-in and inspiration to kind of push forward with these topics.
So there's a sense of governments are flip-flopping a lot, at least the UK government flip-flops a lot in terms of political leadership. This then causes very rapid changes in the strategy of a specific piece of legislation or specific policy area. This then causes a lot of uncertainty for civil servants. So it restricts their ability in the immediate term to just be committed to their current line of efforts because they know that it might change. And the next few months of their work could actually just be totally useless if the strategy or political direction 6 months later changes.
Right now I talked about the changes in direction that are driven by personnel changes, but there are also changes in direction, in political direction, that are driven by more immediate events, right? So I think Dominic Cummings has said this, that actually what many politicians optimize for is not the result at the next general election, which would not be ideal, but still would be at least a proxy for things going well. But they optimize for the headlines in newspapers on the next day. So I don't have this much first-hand experience to be able to confidently say the same, but it at least sounds to me plausible that this is the case, introducing even further uncertainty in the process.
So you have this experience with the UK government. You saw firsthand how governments often are unable to execute effectively towards a specific goal, given the flip-flopping in direction. But then 2022 comes around, OpenAI released ChatGPT. The world kind of learns about AI for the first time in a big way. And you realize AI or AGI or very, very powerful AI systems, it's happening sooner than you previously thought. What immediately comes to mind for you then? Or what feeling do you have when ChatGPT comes out?
My immediate feeling is that that this is the greatest story of the century. Part of me is super excited that I want to be a part of it, but then very quickly and immediately there is a thought, so I want to be a part of it and I want to be a good guy in the story. And the question is, where can you be a good guy in this story? And in my mind, a lot of this comes to the individual incentives. So, incentives for the organization and then incentives for the individuals who are involved. I really like this metaphor where, when you think about incentives, that you have a fairly convoluted system of caves, and then you have a source of water at the top. And then you start pouring water. So even though it's a very convoluted system, it will be kind of the rules of gravity that govern what the flow of water is going to be. And I often feel that this is the same with human incentives as well. So I really wanted to think, given the different actors, where I would be myself best incentivized and where the organization will be best incentivized for a good outcome for humanity, both in the long term, but then also in the short term.
What was the conclusion of that line of reasoning? Where do you see the incentive flow of water leading that was a good outcome?
So I think I'll start where I didn't see it. So I didn't see it at frontier AI companies. So my thought was that there is just a big risk that the immediate midterm financial incentives will be pointing in a different direction. So even though it might be the case that there are individuals who are well-meaning and have a good understanding of the situation, they want the future to go well, it might just be the case that the immediate incentives that they will have will point somewhere else. If it's an environment where you take the financial incentives to an extent out of the picture, and where it then therefore will be easier for the immediate incentives to be also aligned with the long-term objective. And so hence I thought, the non-profit sector could potentially be that area.
And then in March 2024, you applied to the BlueDot AI governance course. What was the motivation for applying to the course, and what were you hoping to achieve with that experience?
So I had a strong hypothesis that the non-profit sector is the area where I would want to join, the AI safety field. The main motivation was to see and test whether the field is a good fit for me, but then also a very helpful additional benefit was also to be able to test whether I am a good fit for the field.
And what were your findings? In what way did your experience on the course inform your thinking on whether the field is a good fit for you?
I think there were several thoughts that I had in my head that I wanted to test. So first of all, I wanted to better understand the intentions and motivations of people who are in the field. Yeah. Second of all, I wanted to better understand the skills that people have. And then third of all, I wanted to better understand their working culture. And then those three things together potentially forming a work environment that I would want to find myself in. So with motivations, it became very quickly apparent, interacting with the materials, interacting with the course facilitator, interacting with the team who was kind of organizing logistics. You could right away see that those are incredibly well-meaning people who really want the future to go well. And it's not just something that is instrumental to some other hidden goal that you would often see, especially in the corporate world.
What is like an example of how that came through in your experience?
This was especially kind of most apparent with the interactions with the facilitator of my cohort, BlueDot, who just right away from the very first session went out of his way to provide the kind of right support. Of course, the courses are free for participants.
Yeah.
There is participating. There is a certain expectation that someone is there once every week. But then right away, the offer from Luke to if there is at any point anything that any of the participants want to discuss, he's happy to jump on a call anytime and just chat. That was something that made me feel like for this individual, this is not just a job. This is like a calling.
Yes.
And then you kind of felt it in all the interactions going forward.
That's awesome. And you mentioned then that you were also evaluating the skills and the culture of the field as well. How did that manifest?
Exactly. So in terms of the skills. So in here, what comes into play is the quality of discussions that we had in the weekly sessions.
Yeah.
On a more meta level, the experience that you have interacting with the prepared materials and overall in how seamless the entire process is. So there is one specific example that I'm keen to give, which you might not even think about this anymore, but one important use case for a course participant is, this week you want to change cohorts, right? There is something that comes up in your mind.
Yeah.
So, make no mistake, like I have a full appreciation that like coordinating this between hundreds of participants, tens of cohorts and so on, is kind of no mean feat. So then having the experience of I just go and click and say, okay, this week I'm going to go there, and it just happens. Even that was before speaking to anyone from the team, it just shows me, okay, someone over there really has their head screwed on and they did something right.
Yeah, there's when we ran the first big rounds of the course in early 2022, there were like roughly 900 people on the course, and we were running 2 rounds of the course, one with 500, one with 400. We accepted probably way too many people, and we had no infrastructure. So we just had all of the resources back then were just on like a static web page. There was no course like ticking off or anything like this. It was just like very manual. And that's when we discovered that people wanted to switch cohorts. And 2 of my colleagues, for about 3 months, almost all of their time was spent moving people around in different cohorts because we had a mountain of requests to move cohorts. Very quickly, I was like, man, I'm going to lose my team. They're like losing their minds if I cannot solve this problem, if we cannot automate this problem away. And it is a very repetitive process. So we then hired a software engineer to come in and start working with us. And then my colleague Liliane built most of the system for then doing all of the cohort switching. It's a beautiful process. We are very happy that people often enjoy how elegant the journey is. There's a lot of pain and suffering involved in the early work there. So I'm glad that it comes through. It's like, that was a nice process.
I can just wholeheartedly emphasize that it really comes through, and it's and it's very important. So yeah. The course was really a turning point for me. So that was the point that convinced me that the people in the nonprofit AI safety field have the right intentions, have the right skills, and have the right culture for me to want to be the part of it. Other members of the team, so Luke Drago, who was involved at that time in running the course, how open and quick he was in finding other individuals in the field to reach out to talk about the project. And then going even one step further, how open those individuals working on similar topics were to like jumping on a call right away and just like talking about things. And that just made me feel like we all have a collective purpose.
Yeah.
It felt like a community that I want to be a part of.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. I do really love the feeling of we are all in this ecosystem because we are trying to work together to ensure AI goes well. When people join these organizations, they join because they care about the mission. So after the course, you then went to GovAI. I'd love to hear more about that journey of that transition from strategy consulting into GovAI.
So in the immediate aftermath of the course, I think so my mind was made up in terms of whether the field is the right fit for myself. Then there remains a question whether I am the right fit for the field. So I had some signal. I wanted to kind of get a better understanding of what are the types of roles that I could get involved in and so on. In terms of my background, having a PhD in quantum computing and hard sciences, I do have an academic background, but it's not a research background in machine learning. One of the paths that I did consider was going more into governance research, also given my experience in working with the public sector throughout the years, where kind of the kindness of the community comes into the picture again. The team at BlueDot was kind enough to share my profile with the team at GovAI. The team over there, again, went out of their way. They reached out to myself saying, it looks like I have an interesting profile. Would I be interested in chatting more and then potentially applying to participate in the Winter Fellowship at the beginning of 2025? Then was also additional signal that the background that I have might be interesting and I might have something to contribute. Following that and following chatting to Valerie from the GovAI team, I was kind of quite convinced that I want to apply. For this to be an additional stepping stone and an opportunity to then explore the researcher path, but then meet further people in the field and see what are the possible roles or where I could make the biggest contribution.
You joined GovAI as a Winter Fellow. What did you then do as a GovAI Winter Fellow?
The project that I ended up working on a few months after the release of O1, the first reasoning model, and the start of inference scaling coming more into the picture.
Yeah.
People thinking about what are the implications of this? Of course, the important technical implications, but then also the implications for many governance ideas that people have. And it sounded to me like a very important topic at the time, but also one that is fairly comprehensive because it involves an important technical component, and then basically something that would allow me also to better learn about the field, because people often say that in terms of research projects, you should also pick something that, especially when you're entering a field, pick something that will be a jumping off point. And that felt like the right topic. And the setup with the GovAI Fellowship is that you work together with a supervisor. But then similarly, like in the earlier parts of the story, the team over there is going out of their way to introduce you to other potential collaborators and people who are working on similar topics. My primary supervisor was Professor Robert Traeger at the Oxford University's Martin School AI Governance Initiative. And he connected me to Dr. Toby Ord, who at the time was thinking about similar topics. I spent the 3-month period of the fellowship exploring these ideas, but then at the same time getting introduced to more people in the field and then better understanding the kind of scope of possible roles.
And what was the key conclusion or takeaway from this research into the governance of inference scaling?
The key conclusion was that certain ideas need to be adjusted because of the nature of inference workloads. To give one specific example, when you think about compute governance, a lot of the ideas there are based on thresholds for the minimum size of a training run. When you then think that part of the computational workload will be then offloaded into inference, then that impacts the thresholds. It doesn't change the picture directly because pre-training will continue to be very important, and the largest the training runs will still be the ones that are the most dangerous. But then it impacts the level at which you want to set the thresholds, and it also impacts how do you want then to revise them going forward.
And then you, I presume, decide not to continue down the research path and instead to start exploring towards your current role. I'm curious maybe what took place in the few months after the Winter Fellowship and before you landed the role here as the CEO of the London Initiative for Safe AI.
Yes. So actually, in terms of timings, this was all happening at the same time. So it was during my time when I was at gov.ai that the recruitment process for this role took place. So in a sense, that was actually quite helpful. And I kind of participated in other recruitment processes for governance roles. Had an offer to join another organization as a governance researcher. Being there and being again physically in Oxford, because that's where gov.ai was still based before the move to London at the beginning of the year. That was both so it was a journey in time, both in terms, of course, emotionally, but then also a journey back in time in terms of the type of work that I did. And then speaking to other fellows, to other members of the community who I got introduced to during that period, made me realize also how desperate is the need in the field for field builders and people with some professional experience from outside. And it then felt that it's potentially the right niche.
So when the process came to an end and the team at LISA, the London Initiative for Safe AI, made you the offer, how did you feel and what convinced you to accept the offer?
The first feeling was kind of a mix of enormous excitement about the journey and the opportunity. There was, and I'm not going to lie, there was also a tremendous amount of doubt and thinking that kind of finally the moment has come where you have to make the decision. So it's no longer curious intellectual exploration. It's no longer taking part in an optional course. It's no longer even doing a secondment from my day job and being at gov.ai for 3 months. This is now go time. You have to decide, make the leap of faith. So it was kind of quick succession, but also the right mind frame for myself to then be able to decide.
So you receive the offer, you feel this excitement, you also feel apprehension that this is the big decision. What was the thing that pushed you over the edge that you decided to leave your something like 8-year career and now you're jumping into this fairly young, scrappy organization? What was the thing that pushed you towards, I'm going to become the CEO of LISA?
Yeah. The thing that decided this for me is the story of transformative AI and the challenge that humanity faces is just too big for myself to stay on the sidelines. I think it would be very difficult to kind of thinking what is my current worldview and how I kind of weigh the different probabilities. It would be then difficult to be so inconsistent with my individual actions.
After you accepted, what was the first month like? The biggest highs, the biggest uncertainties, the biggest wobbles. What was that like for you?
First thing that you do as a former strategy consultant, you go into an organization and you want to do a diagnostics project. You want to understand the challenges, you want to understand the opportunities. The bar that you want to apply to this, like when you do the assessment, is not the bar of whether an organization has been net positive, because in the nonprofit sector, many organizations are, especially against the counterfactual of no other organization of a similar type is existing. Evaluating the organization from the perspective against the bar of the potential and against what is actually truly needed by the AI safety field. That was particularly exciting to me to, again, really think from first principles on what is needed and then work backwards from that. And then here's where our relationship comes into the picture, because that's when we first started chatting.
Yeah, that's exciting. What excited you from your diagnostic? What energized you to then, put your heart and soul into trying to make LISA the field building organization that it needs to be, that the AI safety field needs it to be?
What was the most exciting was chatting to individuals who have been involved in the community, people who were there either from day one or kind of joined at a later stage, and hearing from all sides a very consistent message on potential. Because of course, coming in externally, you have certain preconceptions and so on, but there is also kind of a degree of humility to kind of better understand what, again, coming from the consulting days, what people who have been involved believe. The feeling that I have the opportunity to play my part is something that excited me very much.
So you are now the CEO of the London Initiative for Safe AI, which has the acronym LISA. I'm curious if you could briefly describe to the audience What is Lisa? What is the mission? What does a week in the life of Lisa look like?
Yes. Currently, the London Initiative for Safe AI is an organization that primarily operates physical co-working space in London's Shoreditch with around 170 seats. And we host, broadly speaking, three types of groups. Group number one is research organizations, other organizations that work in the AI safety field. Group number two is participants of entry-level fellowships and programs. And then group number three is individual researchers.
So you've been in at Lisa for a few months now. You have implemented a bunch of improvements. I am very excited about the improvements you've made. So like many people in the community, so I'm very grateful for your work there. And so when you imagine Lisa moving into the future, what is the mission of Lisa?
So my ambition for the organization is to be the primary AI safety center in Europe that is helping humanity's transition towards transformative AI. We all share a common purpose in the field. It is something kind of along the lines of navigating towards transformative AI, minimizing the risks, maximizing the benefits. There are many flavors of that. And the question is, what is the kind of most sensible, largest, but also most cohesive chunk of that problem that an organization like the London Initiative for Safe AI could plausibly tackle? And my sense is that there are three main problems that I want the organization to contribute towards solving. Problem number one is the problem of capacity in the field, so a number of talented workers, entrepreneurs growing the field. Number two is capability in the field. So once those people are in the field, so that the organizations that they form and that they run work effectively, efficiently. And then the third is the problem of cooperation. So once those organizations individually work well, so that they work well together, cooperate, coordinate with each other, and then with stakeholders outside. So my ambition is to, in the context of the next 1 to 2 years, to make a substantive contribution to each of these three problems. And it doesn't necessarily mean that Lisa itself has to be doing it on its own. So there's, of course, a spectrum under each of the problems where there will be certain aspects where it makes sense for the organization to do itself, but there are many more where it makes more sense for Lisa to be the enabler for other organizations working on these topics. And in here, one of the primary elements I want us to be able to provide is the physical space and a truly world-class, excellent office and community where people would be able to kind of come in from day one, have an absolutely seamless experience, meet people with whom they could start new projects or join existing successful projects. Also have the same feeling that I had when I first joined the BlueDot courses. So have the feeling that we are all part of a bigger team working on something that bigger than all of us.
Cool. So we've discussed a lot about the vision for Lisa, your journey into becoming the CEO of Lisa. But what does your job actually look like on a day-to-day basis? What do you actually do?
So I'll start first with saying that, as many people would say, well, there's not such a thing as a typical day in my job. Obviously, everyone would say that. But if like really pushed to think, it's a mix between several things. So we have to, at the same time, keep track of the big picture, of the overall strategy and the big objectives. But then, given the size of the organization and given how the nonprofit sector in the safety field is still a very small ecosystem that's growing, you also have to be close to the details and to the operational aspects. I end up looking after kind of many aspects of the organization, operational aspects of running a physical office, a view on financial, HR, IT, what have you. But at the same time, you need to keep the hat of the overall big picture, because you cannot lose yourself in the operational day-to-day, because once you get into that mindset, you just start firefighting and the organization goes nowhere. So that involves keeping myself honest and having each week a period of time set aside for these topics. And that involves either kind of individual thinking, but then most importantly, bouncing it off other people as well, because otherwise, applying the scientific method to this, if you just do it yourself, again, you can convince yourself about that anything is right. And then if you then test it with people, test it with experimental data, ideally when you can, then that actually has a chance of kind of being implementable and taking the organization somewhere.
So right now we are in Shoreditch. We are in, I think, the third location that Lisa has been in, where we started in a WeWork. We then went to a tech space. Now we're in this leased office in Shoreditch. And we have been exploring the fourth permutation of Lisa's physical space. I'm curious how much you can share on the vision and hopes for the physical space over the next year or two right now. Appreciating that nothing has been finalized, many uncertainties remain. But I'm curious, what can you share with the audience?
Of course. So our ambition is to move to a much improved and larger location in London's King's Cross. Being an organization for which the physical space is the most kind of important foundational aspect, being close to where frontier AI companies are, being close to the overall London tech hub is something that's very important. I definitely want to not to make the mistake that organizations often make when scaling, is that you move to a new location and then very quickly you find that you cannot expand and go any further. So I want the new location to be the permanent home for the organization for at least the next few years. And I want to truly build a bespoke environment in which the different individuals, different kind of groups of people who are part of the Lisa ecosystem get an absolutely world-class excellent service. So whether you are a participant in an entry-level program, you're here only for 5 weeks as part of a cohort, or whether you are an established researcher, a member of a top research organization, I want the physical space to provide you with the elements that you need in order to succeed and thrive in this environment.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I feel very, very excited to be able to occupy the space in the future as well. Maybe to come towards my final question, if you were able to travel back in time to 2022, 2023, and give yourself career advice from back then, what career advice would you give yourself?
So I will first caveat the advice with the kind of natural human tendency to be able to, after a period of time, to tell a retroactive story that is consistent and rationalize all of the choices that you made. But of course, my first instinct is to say, well, do exactly what you did because you're in the right place.
Nice.
So that's the immediate instinct.
Yeah.
But so if I was to be kind of even more honest with myself, I think the biggest piece of advice is that, especially when making a career transition, to not right away think about the big jump and the big leap of faith, because potentially that might be something that discourages you because it's so big and so fundamental. My advice would be to start with the small things, whether it's reading an individual blog post that could convince you, whether it's participating in a program if that's something that you are able to do, and then kind of build on that, because it helps both to build an evidence base and convince yourself that the field is right for you, but then also gives the field a chance to evaluate whether you are the right fit. That being said, if an amazing opportunity materializes and you have the option to make the leap of faith, by all means, just do it, because then humans have a tendency to rationalize, and then you will still be able to not worry, and you will still be convinced that this was the right choice. So.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thanks so much, Kris. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dewi. Really appreciate it.
Very, very excited to see what is next for Lisa.
Thank you so much.